Welcome to the Mind Myself podcast. I'm Esther, and it is my pleasure to be bringing you information about healthcare approaches, health issues, and people's health journey stories, all from the complementary, holistic, and integrative perspectives, helping you become your own best health advocate and helping you make your own informed choices because you matter. Welcome to Mind Myself, Conversations with E. I'm Esther, founder and CEO of Mind Myself, and it is again my great pleasure to welcome to the show Dr. Vicki Mondloch. Welcome, Dr. Vicki.
Thank you. It's such a pleasure to be here.
Before we jump into the conversation today about AM cortisol or adrenal stress, let's find out a little bit about who you are, Dr. Vicki. Tell us a little bit about your career, what you've done, and what you're so passionate about.
Well, thank you. I'm a board-certified OB-GYN, did that traditionally for 16 years, then broke away to private practice where I blended complementary alternative with energy medicine, with regenerative medicine, and discovered the real secret of my passion, which is wellness. And wellness means many things to many people, but wellness in my book is keeping people off of medication and out of the healthcare system. So I did that by balancing the 4 hormone groups, and 2 of those groups we're going to talk about today.
Fantastic. I love it. And you're speaking my language here with the complementary, holistic, and integrative health. This is what Mind Myself is all about. All right, let's jump in. What is cortisol and why is it so important? I know we hear about this everywhere, but what is AM cortisol and why is it important?
Well, AM stands for AM versus PM. So it's your morning cortisol, traditionally 2 to 3 hours after you have awoken from your slumber. Whether you're a first shifter, second shifter, third shifter, that may be different times for different people. So it's kind of a misnomer to say AM cortisol because it automatically shifts it to that first shifter only. But if somebody is a second shifter, they may sleep until 8 in the morning. Then they're getting ready to go to their job later in the day, or they may sleep till 10. So it's going to depend that 2 to 3 hours before they go to work is their best timing. Same with third shift. But cortisol is your stress. It can be physical stress. It can be emotional stress. It can be financial stress. Stress comes in many, many ways, but stress is in some respects good. It's that fight or flight. But if you get overstressed, that flight may actually cause you to stumble, if you will. So in that range of cortisol, there's a sweet spot, what I call the optimal. So if I would tell you that the range would go roughly from 6 to 19, that sweet spot is if you are 10 to 12. If you're over the top of the range, that is stress. And most of us can handle stress pretty well for a time, but we don't handle the bottom of that scale below 6 as distress. We don't handle that well at all. When we're in distress, we act many times like a dementia patient. We can't tell what time of day it is. We can't say what day it is, what month it is, even what year it is. You completely forget. You can't say what you're supposed to be doing that day. You get to work and you're completely non-functional. So that's when stress has completely taken over your brain function and you simply are dysfunctional.
And if this is so important, and it sounds like it is, why don't our doctors, as a matter of course, test for this, or do they?
Well, many traditional medicine docs look at stress as, oh, go meditate. Oh, just pick up a book and read. Oh, do breathing exercises for a couple minutes. They kind of give it very passing notice, if you will, and don't consider it important. Yet, what did we hear for decades was a high stress job can cause a heart attack, can cause a stroke. So we know that in the back of our mind, but yet nobody took the time to say, what is that measure of stress? They would measure the effect of that stress, a blood pressure reading. They would measure whether or not you were building plaque around the vessels around your heart. They would measure the after effect, but not necessarily the actual stress. That's a cortisol. And some people say you can only do a cortisol if you measure it 4 times during a day to find the rhythm of your body. Well, again, if you know that you're a first shifter, your AM cortisol is when you spike, and the rest of your day will spend coming down from that spike, and then you'll settle for your sleeping time. So if you're really, really off, then perhaps it's important to know other times of the day. But your AM cortisol, when you spike, you need to know where you are. Are you over spiking or not? So Western medicine just doesn't give any credence to a cortisol. It's something that you can control, so take care of that yourself. And it's just, I think, the wrong message.
And what tests would you recommend that people do to test their cortisol? You said 4 times throughout the day, but we can't realistically do that. So what do you recommend are some steps for us to take around knowing what our cortisol levels are?
Well, I would suggest, again, that blood test for an AM cortisol. How do we support our cortisol? Well, many of us give ourselves the stress with extra caffeinated drinks and whatever. So that will reflect in our cortisol. But what supports our adrenal in our body is a vitamin B complex, in particular, a vitamin B12, in particular, whether or not that vitamin B12 is methylated. And when I say methylated, methyl, methylated, that is a detox method in the body to clear junk and toxin from your tissues. So what a lot of people don't realize is part of their problem with cortisol may be lifestyle, but if they're not properly supporting with methylated vitamin B, especially B12, they actually are missing one of the easiest things that they can do to support their own stress.
Great advice. Now, you talked, just let's clarify briefly for those people maybe not in that mindset, but you talked about shift 1, shift 2, shift 3. I think I know what you mean, but just if you could clarify what you mean by that.
Well, first shifters are people that work from 8 in the morning until 5 at night. Second shifters are usually that 3 in the afternoon to 11 at night. And then a third shifter is usually 11 o'clock until about 7 in the morning. So that's kind of that traditional role of first, second, third shifters.
Got it. Thank you. Now, people, we hear about adrenal fatigue all the time. Can you talk about cortisol in relation to what we're hearing out into the world?
Well, many people take adrenal fatigue as overstress. In my world, my interpretation of that is the adrenal fatigue is the adrenal distress when you are too low. And I'll give you an example. This is a patient that at 22 had graduated from college with her biomedical engineering degree. She was a clean desk girl. So she got to her job, first job, she's going to impress her boss, and she's doing her job, and people eventually around her are leaving or quitting. They're not replacing them. So their work is getting put on her desk. She's a clean desk girl. So she's staying late because she's going to clean her desk. And then she started staying weekends and going in on Saturdays, even Sundays, until her fiance finally said, enough. This is crazy. The work will still be there when you go in Monday morning. So I forbid you from going in on Saturday. Well, her boss is now calling her a slacker for having work left on her desk, not recognizing, or maybe recognizing, but still shaming her into not clearing her desk. Well, she got so stressed that she literally went all the way to the other end of distress. Her grandmother called the office and said, "You have to see her today. I don't know what's going on." So she comes in and she is literally like a cat on a hot tin roof. And she's picking up her phone and she's looking at her phone and she's hitting the buttons and putting it down. It will go off. Oh, and she jumps out of her chair. And we spend 5 minutes of just, I'm letting her do whatever it is she's doing. And I had started that 5 minutes with, what's going on? And she didn't answer me. She just kept doing all these answering of her phone. Her boss is texting her, where are you? Where are you? And whatever. And after 5 minutes of this, she finally puts her phone face down and she leaned forward to me and whispered. And I thought, oh my goodness gracious. So, her boyfriend was there, her fiance, and he said, let me put a little more clarity here. He said she had her bag packed to go on the trip we have planned in August. It's March. And she said, come on, we're late for the airport. And he goes, what? We're not going anywhere. No, we have to get there. Our plane tickets for no, that's in 4 months. No, it's today. We have to go today. And she completely could not tell what month, what day. She had decompensated her brain from the rest of her body function with her adrenal distress. So it can get to that level where no amount of a methylated B12 vitamin is going to pull her out of that. So yes, did she allow herself to get into that situation? Well, she did, but her boss was not helpful at all and was contributing to the situation. But for no one around to recognize she had gotten to that level until she was there was really dramatic.
Oh, what a sad story. I feel for this young woman. What do you recommend for people to avoid going down that extreme case? What are the signs that we look for to notice sooner? And then we'll talk about what to do about that. But what are some signs that we can recognize that we need to pay attention?
Sleep is one of the first things that will go. Is you will not have regular sleep patterns. You'll have disturbed sleep. You'll wake up a lot. You'll have trouble falling asleep. You'll have trouble staying asleep. Many people will actually, with such stress, impact their female-male hormones. And in women, you may actually act menopausal with hot flashes and night sweats. Many people will actually have headaches that start to impact because blood pressure is being impacted by it. Remember, I said a stress can cause a blood pressure issue. It can cause heart attack. Many people will get chest pain. They'll get reflux. They'll have all of these signs of a potential cardiac issue going on. Some may be completely silent, which is the scariest part because they may not even recognize some of the symptoms that their body is throwing at them. I had one patient who actually had started a third shift job because she just wanted to work in a nursing home and the only job available was a third shift job. But what ended up happening with her stress of driving an hour to work, driving an hour back, and then a third shift job besides with her mother, aged mother living with them that she was caregiving, is she actually completely through her good cholesterol, the HDL, she went from low normal and dropped it all the way down to almost non-existent. And it changed her cardiac profile from her lipid panel so dramatically that it gave her a 12-time increased risk of heart attack simply by dropping her protective HDL. And I said to her, your job is killing you. It is literally killing you. If you don't stop this job, you're going to have a cardiac event. I can prove it to you right here. And she just looked at me and said, what do I do? I said, you have to quit your job. You have to find something else or it will kill you.
Wow. Well, that's another example of a dramatic experience. What can we do before quitting our job? Although if we need to do that for our own life's blood, then we need to do that. But what are some things we can do when we start recognizing these symptoms of cortisol stress or adrenal stress?
Well, one of the first things is you can take your pulse. You can take your blood pressure. I think every person should have a home blood pressure cuff. And, it's easy. It's usually $75 for a home blood pressure cuff that sits on your table that you put the cuff on, press a button, and you will archive up to 10 blood pressures in a row with your pulse. So you can track your own body's response to how your day is going, how your week is going, different times of day. But more importantly is if you know that you're in a high moving or a high stress job, you're a mom that is both a mom, a wife, you're caregiving elderly parents, you're doing PTA at school, you've got 5 hats that you wear. You may be on the outside wearing that pretty gracefully, but maybe not so well on the inside. So if you know that your sleep is, perhaps getting disturbed, or you have a lot on your plate, it's a really easy fix or support to have a vitamin B complex in your daily regimen. Know that the methyl is something that 30% of our population is missing the ability to do. Genetically, we are missing one of the MTHFR genes that tells us whether or not we can properly clear toxin from our tissues. People that cannot will many times build that toxin in their tissues to the point where they get muscular pain, even to the point of being diagnosed fibromyalgia. When it's really, they cannot properly clear toxin, and methylated vitamin B12 will help you clear not only toxin, but will methylate and help you clear toxin from your body, which is a stress to your body, and it will help de-stress, drop your cortisol, and support your adrenal as well.
And you mentioned, I'm going to look at my notes here, MTHFR. And how do we get checked for this? Or do we need to? And if we do, how do we do that?
Well, it's a simple blood test. And there are many variants of MTHFR, but the 2 most important are the ones that a blood test will check. Realize that each gene has, or each, of the genetic markers, you have one from your mom, one from your dad. So you get 2 copies of each gene. So you have 4 that you'll be told you have. If you're missing one, sorry, that was the wrong finger to put down.
I noticed that. I love it.
If you're missing one, then that is something called heterozygous. And it depends if you're missing from one gene or the other. You might be missing one from both. You might be missing 2 from one or 2 from the other. But either way, replacing with the methylated B complex is the answer. That's the treatment. And it's treatment for life. But it's a blood test. You're only going to need to check that once in your life because that's your genetic makeup. Your genes don't change. So you only need to get it checked once. But 30% of the population are missing that ability. So it's quite likely that you may be missing, or your spouse may be missing. You may be missing one, your spouse may be missing the other. I actually did blood work on the siblings, on the children that were ages 6 through 11. They each had different MTHFR genes missing, which meant the mom and the dad had to get checked. They were both missing different genes and what they had passed on to their children. So the kids were having failure to thrive. They weren't gaining weight. They were having mild seizure activity. And it was literally based upon their not having the ability to properly clear toxin from their tissues.
And so I heard you say that if you do get this test and you find out that you have one of those genes missing or 2 of those genes missing, that you will have to be on methylated vitamin B complex for the rest of your life.
That could be worse. It's vitamins for life. Wow. It's something that you can get from Amazon, you can get from your corner health food store, but just make certain that it's methylated. vitamin B12 and methylfolate. In the world of obstetrics, we've known about methylfolate for pregnant moms forever, but did we ever make that crossover to tell the general public about methylated vitamin B12 for other ailments? No, medicine has never made that crossover, but they did do it for obstetrics.
Wow. Well, at least they did it for obstetrics. And if your doctor doesn't do this test for you for MTHFR, you can ask for it, or can you go and pay for it and do it yourself, or does this have to come through a doctor?
No, you can do it yourself. Patients can do any blood work on their own by going online, either through Quest, which is a national lab, or Life Extensions, which is a subsidiary of LabCorp, which is another national lab. And when I say national, in the US, but I assume that there are also abilities for Canadians to have access to those labs. But if you go online and you pay for those labs online, you'll get mailed a receipt or emailed a receipt. That receipt then is what you take to that lab's draw station, get drawn, and they will say to you, where do you want that result to go? Well, you want it to go to you. You know, that way you have control over that lab result. And know that you can also do, if you're a 23andMe person, you can do the lookup of whether or not you are missing one of those MTHFR genes, but you have to know how to read the code for reading 23andMe.
Okay. And so you really should take the test to a medical professional who knows how to read labs once you get your test. And then they will help you determine, I'm guessing, if they know this, which methylated vitamin B complex you should take and how much of it. Is that right?
It's primarily how much of it. So in particular, when you're missing one of those 4 genes, you need to be taking at least 1 to 2,000 mcg, micrograms, of a methyl vitamin B12. If you are missing 2 genes, regardless of if they're from this one or this one, then you need 3 to 4,000 mcg of that methylated vitamin B12. So what many people never really realize is they just see vitamin B complex. They never pick it up and look at the back to see if it says methyl. They just look to see if it's got B12. Or they'll say, well, I get a B12 shot. Well, I will guarantee you it is not methyl B12, because they don't even make that anymore. Since COVID started, it is too expensive to make $200 per cc injectables of something that most people get at their health food store, or they get it sometimes at a beauty salon. Oh, give me $20 and I'll give you a B12 shot. Well, that's not methyl B12.
Got it.
Right.
Wow, there's so much to learn. And I know that this is one leg of the hormone chair. And as we wrap up the conversation, can you put this AM cortisol into context with the other 3 legs, just very briefly?
Absolutely. The 4 hormone legs of your chair are the foundation of your health. So we talked in the first couple of segments about the sex hormone first leg of your chair. For men, total and free testosterone. For women, the total free testosterone and your female hormones, estradiol, progesterone. The second leg of your chair is what we're talking about today, your adrenal, your AM cortisol, how to support that, how to recognize if you may be in stress versus distress, and what you can do about it. Do they talk to each other? Absolutely. Does one affect the other if one leg is stressed or broken and the other one trying to help out and be supportive? Absolutely. To the point that it can get pulled out of balance simply by trying to support the other leg.
Great. So that's 2 legs, and the other 2 are, I know we're going to get into
thyroid.
Yep.
Thyroid. And then the 4th is your insulin. Notice I didn't say blood sugar. I didn't say your A1C. I said your insulin. That's a hormone.
Great. And if you want to know more about those other legs, there are other podcasts that you can watch. There's a summary and there's an individual one just like today's. explaining each of the legs of the chairs. So thank you for being with us, Dr. Vicky. And what is one thing you want to leave your listener with today?
Even if you're not able to get online and or have your doctor draw your MTHFR, do a methylated vitamin B complex. You will be astounded at the extra energy that you get, but make certain that a minimum that you take of methyl vitamin B12 is 1000 mcg. You will never go wrong.
Fantastic. We so appreciate your wisdom, Dr. Vicky. Thank you again for being here today.
My pleasure.
Thank you for being with us at the Mind Myself podcast today. We know that time is precious and you've spent some of your valuable time with us. We're grateful. If you would like to reach out to our guests directly, the information is below. And if you would like more from Mind Myself, that information is also below. Please visit our website and check out all the information about the different complementary, holistic, and integrative healthcare approaches, information about health issues, more podcasts, tons of blogs, and we even have a community page for you where you could reach out and tell your story safely, or you could ask questions and perhaps somebody else in the world is going through something similar to you. In any case, we're so glad you're with us, and we're doing this because you matter.